I do not believe that my gender affected the way I was raised. I grew up with a single mother and no father figure, so I was very feminine. And unlike many young boys at that age, most people would have thought I was a girl because I played with Barbies and painted my nails. With only having a mother, it was easy for her to influence me.
I think that early on in life, up until around age 6, my parents treated me just as they would treat my sister. But as I got older, they expect different things from a male than a female. For example, I am expected to be tougher at an earlier age.
When I grew up, the gender roles were very different than they are today. Kids, especially girls, were supposed to just sit there and only talk when spoken to. I was only able to be myself around my sisters and my friends, but when adults were around, I was supposed to look presentable and act very polite.
In my school, girls and boys were split up and were restricted from going anywhere near each other. The only time they were allowed to play was at recess when they were outside the classroom walls. Nowadays, children are brought up in more liberal situations that aren't as strict. Back then, you were told what your role in life would be, and you respected what you were told.
My gender affected the way I was treated and the way I was raised. In our current society, very much depends on your gender. If not influenced by a certain way by my parents, then it was by the people in my life, like my teachers, friends, family, and anyone else that was around me.
Definitely not. Like I said, I played with girl toys and played dress up. My mom was very open-minded when I was a child and let me express myself the way I wanted to.
My sister and I were both raised the same way and did the same activities. Our parents expected the same from both of us, but as we grew up, our gender roles began to become more defined. For example, my parents expect me to now take out the trash, as my sister is never told to do this.
Yes, I definitely believe that the way I was raised was a direct correlation to my gender. I was always wearing pink dresses and playing with dolls and was expected to just follow the rules.
The gender role for a girl was that when she would grow up and get married, she would cook and clean and care for her children. She didn't know any better. The gender role for a male was to work all day and take care of farming and labor work. When it came to sexuality, we grew up unaware of gays and lesbians because our society, it wasn't normal. We had no television or media to portray sexuality, so marriage was always male and female.
Growing up with 2 older brothers, they influenced me the most, but just because I wanted to be like them. My parents, who did not see any problem with me wearing their hand-me-downs, influenced me to be a tomboy, but as I got older I grew out of it because I saw the way other girls my age were acting and dressing. My parents let me choose the way I wanted to dress and act.
Every household varies. I'm sure that a strict Catholic household did not allow their son to be able to express himself in feminine ways like I was because of their religious beliefs. I believe that some families allow their children the privilege of self-expression, and other families do not, and would never allow this. It's not uncommon to find a very small-minded individual, but this has not always been the case. It was not always socially acceptable to show expressions and individuality. When my mother was a kid, it was very uncommon to be different from the other children because of the ignorance of how the brain functions, and in some cases homosexuality is in fact a factor of the different behavior of the supposed cookie-cutter child. Boys are supposed to be raised to be strong and rough, while girls are supposed to be graceful and weak. That is obviously not the case anymore as times and mindsets are evolving.
Compared to when I grew up, kids now get phones at a younger age, they start cursing at a much younger age, and are exposed to a lot more of the real world than I was. I also believe that kids' choices are more valued and accepted in cultures today.
Seeing my children and grandchildren grow up, I definitely believe that the way in which kids are brought up has changed. Kids nowadays are allowed to dress the way they want and play with whatever toys they want. At first this was very foreign to me, but as my kids and grandchildren have shown me, kids are growing up to be incredible people and my views have changed.
When raising my own children, they had more choices with what they wanted to do with their lives. However, my 3 sons were expected to work on the farm and put the farm first.
I think that the society we live in today is more gender neutral and accepting of genders acting opposite or in a different way. but certain ideas of gender are so ingrained in people's minds and society as a whole that it is impossible for a child to grow up in an entirely gender-neutral environment. So I think that sometimes kids are raised a certain way so they can fit the norm that society has developed.
Yes, I do. Even if a family does not accept a child, that child will have supporters out there. Once you get out in the real world, you are not the minority. You were in the small town or small family you were brought up in. You are soon to be the majority.
Of course, I value what kids have to say, but when I was younger, this was not the case. I think that a lot of this was due to the gap that was developed between my parents and myself. My maids and nannies primarily raised me. The only time I spent with my parents was at the dinner table or at family gatherings where I was expected to act politely. I think that if my mother and father would have taken the time to listen to what my sisters and I had to say, they would have valued our opinions a lot more.
Like I said before, my parents valued my choices, but I think that it depends on the family. I think that children's ideas are valued, but not always accepted by some families.